Hey guys, welcome back to the shop and welcome to part 2 of the bar holder for the shaper build. We're going to work on the bar in this video and hopefully finish it up. We're going to try to broach a hole. Will it be successful? We'll see. I'm glad you're here, so let's get started. Alright guys, in part 1, we built the holder, we welded it, we drilled it, we turned the nuts down, and we slotted the end of our soon-to-be bar. And, you know, I know that there's reasons why people don't broach holes on a shaper that are, you know, so small. But if you price a Minuteman broach set, you'll see why I'm doing it this way. And in the spirit of me always having to do things the hard way, I'm going to try it. So let's get started and build this bar. Okay, we got our bar on the lathe and we're going to turn it down to about 550 thousandths. This bar is just a little bent, but I think it'll be alright. I should have checked it first on the surface plate, but it's a bolt, so it's not going to be, you know, they're never perfect. So let's turn this guy down and get this bar closer to finished. Small bar. $152. We can live with that. Alright, our bar's out of the lathe. And we just did a little over 2 inches long because we don't plan to do any keyways that are over that length. We want to make this as rigid as it can be. If we need to in the future, we can always make the bar, turn it down and make it a little longer. But I've changed my plan a little on how I'm gonna, you know, hold this tool still in here. And I was just gonna TIG weld it and, you know, machine it and call it good. But I think I'm gonna try to braze a tip on, not fix the cutter, but braze the cap on the end. I think I can get a better job, and I think it'll look better in the end, and I still believe that it'll be plenty strong. So I'm going to bring in a little closer and explain my plan a little more in detail where you can see. Alright, you can see that, you know, I took a little needle file and just hand filed a little crosshatch pattern in here. And when I braze this cap on, that's the plan anyway, that'll give the braze, you know, somewhere to bite into. This is our soon-to-be cap. And I'm just going to machine the reversed image of this onto this. So there'll be a raised rib in the center that will index just slightly in the slot. Then I will, you know, come in and braze this guy I'll show you the brazing. I'm going to machine this off camera. I'm just going to come in with a shaper and just knock the edges off of this just to where it'll, index into here, or, slot in. And, we'll cut this free once I've, left all this extra stock on here just to hold in the shaper. And I'm going to use the same V-block that I used in part 1 to slot this, for the end cap here. And I'm just going to come in and rake the sides off here till I get a matching raised rib that'll slide down in here. And then after we're done with that, we'll come in, we'll put this in the lathe, and we'll turn these down till they match, and then we'll come in and drill the spots for our 2 set screws. And there's plenty of space here. So that's the plan. Hope it works. Alright, there's the piece we machined, our end cap, and it is just got a raised, it's kind of small, but a little raised lip there that goes down in our slot here, and it's a good fit. So we got our brazing material in the background. We're going to use a 15% silver, some brazing flux, and oxygen acetylene. And I'll get this set up and I'll bring it back when we're ready to braze it. Alright, we're going to use a 15% silver here, some brazing flux. We're going to get some flux in between the 2 parts here before we get started. That way, hopefully, the silver will flow. And hopefully this tip is big enough to heat this. Should be. That looks really good. And you got the solder flow, or the brazing alloy all the way around pretty good. Let's see if I can get you in and get you a little better shot of it. It's real easy to use too much solder. And then you got to spend a lot of time, or brazing alloy, and then you got to spend a lot of time cleaning it up. So I think the trick is to, use some flux and flux both parts between your 2 mating surfaces, and that way it draws the brazing alloy in a good even heat. You can see we're at the edge there, we're all the way around. I can see down into the cavity, and it looks good. So there we go. Alright, a little close look before we take this over to the lathe. We went over to the saw and we cut our extra stock off. And our tool steel fits really well in here still, and that's good. We've got a lot of excess material here. We're going to go in there with a lathe and we'll just machine it all down to 1 diameter. And then we'll come in and put our set screws in. But it turned out real nice. I'm really happy with it, and I think it's going to work out just fine. I'm really happy with the braze job. It turned out good, but we cleaned it all really good before we attempted to braze it together, and that's pretty important. And we scuffed up the mating surfaces. If those mating surfaces were perfectly flat and met together really good, none of this braze could have got in between the two. So to get a good bond, we roughed the surfaces up, and and we also fluxed both surfaces before we put them together. That way, that draws that alloy in. So let's go over to the lathe and turn this all down to 1 dimension. And that turned out real nice. All I need to do now is drill it for the set screws, and I'm going to do that off camera because I don't think you need to see me drill 2 holes, but I'm just going to drill them along the center line here, and then I'll probably face it off to where our screws are 100% recessed, and then I'll grind a piece of tool steel for it. Drilling this guy out, which I thought was going to be a no problem, simple task, actually turned into quite an adventure. Apparently I let this cool too fast when I brazed it, and it hardened, and man, that was something. So I ended up having to heat it with a propane torch and get it extremely hot and drill it while it was extremely hot. Then I wrapped it in some ceramic insulation and let it cool slow. But I should have let it cool slower when I brazed it. Well, guys, is it going to work? I don't know. That's a soon to be answered question, that's for sure. We got our test bore, or just a reamed 5/8 hole. We got our little baby cutter ground. We got those set screws tapped and ready. This is just a key that I'm going to use to square it up in the shaper, but if I had to do anything over, I would have welded this on like I originally planned. If it's going to fail, it'll be because of the braze, I'm sure. But there we go. Nothing left to do but try it. So I'm going to set this guy up and bring you back. Well, guys, here's our setup. Just a standard, just like any other holder. And it's either going to succeed or fail. So here we go. Let me bring you in a little closer. And this is kind of going to go slow because just because of the nature of this bar. Ever so often I'm going to have to stop and lower the cutter. So let's do it. working, but not ideal. I'm going to put a little more rake on this cutter, and I'll bring you back. Okay guys, I got to looking at this, and I thought that it had enough rake, and it does. And the problem is what I thought we'd deal with, and it's just loading up with chips right here. Because there has to be a little rake in this cutter, it gives just a little pocket in the front of this tool, and that's just packing with chips. I thought that would be a problem, and it is. So I'm going to clean this out, and then we'll restart with no changes to the cutter. We'll probably just do this again, but we're going to try it anyway. Alright guys, I just used a pick, and I cleaned out the chips underneath that cutter, and I lowered it just a few thousandths. And I'm going to put just a little bit of oil in here. And we'll try this again, but it's probably going to do the same thing. Well guys, here it is. A fresh look at it, straight out of the shaper. Key's just a little tight, but I'm happy with that. It turned out great. You know, not perfect, but you know, with a little refining, we won't have a problem at all doing it. Well guys, the answer is yes. Yes, you can do it. And yes, the bar did hold up. Now, should you do it? That's a different question. It sure was a lot of work. You know, we got off to a rocky start, you know, and I was wondering, you know, why is the finish so bad? You know, why is the bar performing like it is? And come to find out, it was just loaded with chips. I cleaned those chips out, and it was pretty much smooth sailing to the end. I had to stop and adjust the cutter a couple times, but no big deal. The finish is great. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything different from a broach set. If you haven't, subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.